welcome to another broadcast of In the Circle Ministry. What we'll be taking up under the spiritual microscope tonight will be human right versus civil rights, and that way you can learn your positions, your authority, and you can see where your spiritual standpoint is at. Um, so thank you for coming out tonight. This is our What's Up Wednesday show, where we do our live every Wednesday. Um, Also, to let you know, this is, like I said, a virtual YouTube ministry where we take things from the microscope here. So it's all about self-mastery, your spiritual growth. So knowing that you've still been continuously working on your spiritual growth, and you've constantly been trying to allow your higher consciousness to master your lower consciousness, and it is a part of your lifestyle now. So you're continuously taking things up under a microscope and examining them for the truth that it is. There's a verse in the Bible that says to try the spirit by the spirit. So by the spiritual eye, seeing things up under the microscope with your spiritual eye, you are able to see the spirit of the things, whether they're your beliefs, your truths, and your perspectives. And you can line them up with the truth, the spirit of truth that shows up. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for joining. On the last couple of weeks, we've been doing a couple of more civic-based educational department for the In the Circle ministry, and I want you to check out the description. You have to go in there and read yourself. I'm going to quit announcing it out loud and reading out what's already there for you to read. I'm not going to overwork myself, but check it out and see what we have to offer in there. And do know that everything that we talk about on our channel, as always, is spiritual advice. It's for spiritual, educational, entertainment purposes. Nothing is legal advice. If you're searching for legal advice, I advise you to search out a licensed attorney. But we do talk about things where you have the right, and what you should have common knowledge of is of your civic rights. Also, that no, it all stems from your spirituality and your spiritual understanding and your spiritual identity, and how you conduct yourself within the world and amongst society and amongst others. First, starting with yourself. Your home. Charity starts at home. Love and everything that you do starts at home. You do and be the individual that you are at home, out in the open, and also how to govern yourself in certain ways. And these things all come with your self-mastery and your self-growth, and within you to understand the God that you are and your God uniqueness and likeness and image that you are created into. So as we all coexist inside of the same collective consciousness. So I know that I'm streaming, and you guys give me a second as well. I'll be able to check the YouTube comments out later. It's something we talked about with me using this different software. So I'll be doing different pulling up some things and bringing some information or showing some documents that'll go with what tonight's teaching is about, and the understanding about it. So I guess without too much further ado, let's get into it. So whenever you have human rights are a God-given universal right that's practiced all out throughout the world, and it's something known, and it really has too much to do with nothing else but yourself, and it's how you do yourself collectively. It's your God-given right to be happy. It's your God-given right to possess things. In the beginning of Genesis, the first thing that God told man and Adam and Eve was to go out to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, and to seduce it, and have dominion over the creation of the earth and the natural thing. That didn't have too much to do with taking control and having control over other individuals or whatever, but it was taking and not conquering, but subduing, to have dominion over the animals and the land and the earth, and taking care of it as good stewards knowing that that is where this avatar comes from, and from this earth is where it will return to, and the spiritual nature of who we are is how we conduct ourselves from our heavenly home, from our heavenly existence. And so as we come to the earth and take on these avatars, we respect the earth, and we do as having sovereign God like power over the things to subdue them and to um, what we were talking about earlier to with the animals in the land. So you're able to have your lands. You're able to take care of the animals. And before we get too deep into that, man was eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. It wasn't too much of the meat eating until later on, after the sacrifice had to be made for their clothing. But anyway, um, so that's what we're supposed to do. That is our God-given right to do that, as long as we don't infringe on no other persons, and we don't um, um, cause conflict between us and anyone else in the doing so of what we're doing in our living, in our pursuit for our happiness. And so, as people in general, I would say human rights, God-given natural rights, the rights to be alive and not to have my life taken just because someone wants to take my life, is a God-given right, and a right for me to be here into existence because I'm here into existence is my God-given right, just as well as yours, and to bring pleasure into my life in any way, shape, form, or fashion that doesn't involve the harm or the injury to anyone else in my um, in my journey or in my attaining those things, to be honorable and fair and righteous in all of my dealings. And so that is human rights, and no other person has a right to deny anyone or to treat anyone differently of those human rights. And see, when you deal with human rights, you're dealing with spiritual rights, and with that, there is no status, there is no classification, there is really no Jew, no Gentile, no black, no white, no all these other things that come with classification. It is just that we are all human beings. um, so that is a universal God-given, unalienable right to do, um, and that wasn't given by man, and that should not and cannot be controlled by man. It should and can and always will be controlled by God. And if man violate those things, then man has to answer to the universe or to God or to the higher development or to the higher consciousness about whatever you've done that was against those things. That's not going to change those rights. So when we get into the civics, we'll see how they mirrored into, in a sense, you can see in places in there where those God-given rights in less of words are somewhat protected, but still isn't given by the document. It isn't given into the civil right portion of it. The civil rights portion of it, the example I would give is the more so of the way that you're going to be treated and how you treat others in the public, how you're going to act civilly. You can act disorderly and uncivilly in a private setting or a private venue or in your private house. You can be very uncivil because you have that right. But the thing about it is, just don't be unhumane. That's what the issue is. Don't violate no one God-given rights. But there's a big difference in it. So when we take it and look at it from a spiritual nature, we should look at that before we go into any physical nature. A lot of times we've been going through life and through mainstream everything, teaching, schooling, educations, to societal norms and everything that's going on with the time, custom, and everything else, as America and the world has changed and formed into whatever it is now, or transformed into whatever it is now. People have always went with the so-called the mainstream view. The Bible, from my understanding, when it speaks of having a carnal mind or from a physical concept or from the human, not from the human, but from the man viewpoint, from that consciousness, um, if you do it that way, you're gonna have messed up vision. You're not gonna operate properly. You need to have your spiritual vision. As us being gods, we carry our spiritual vision into all things that we do. And so what we, like I was saying earlier, what we've done is sometimes we'll carry our physical eyes and get ourselves in a situation, and then ask the spiritual or ask the natural law to fix it, or help us out with it. We'll ask God to work these things out and help us out in this physical situation to no resolve, or to say God isn't answering my prayers, or God is slow to answer, or I'm still patiently waiting. And these things will come to pass. One day it will get right. You know, that one day it's gonna come. But taking things from your spiritual eye and seeing it in the physical form, you can understand where all principles come from and where all things root from, and how to recognize your human rights, how to see your human rights, and how to, in a sense, be able to declare your human rights and standing in your God-given spiritual authority, your spiritual right. So most of the times, I mean, when you deal with civil rights, your civil rights are the things that are granted by a governing party, or by a man-made governance, or a man-made power. It mimics, or we talked about the straw man. It is the lookalike. It's your fictitious entity. It is made to do it, but made to look like it, but it's not the carbon copy. It is a great fraud. But anyway, when you deal with that, you deal with status and you deal with civils, you're going to be dealing with governmental policies, and you're going to be dealing with the Constitution. You're going to be dealing with the things that govern the governs, and that govern the laws of the states that govern the people within inside of those jurisdictions. And there's ways that have protected civil rights through the Bill of Rights and other things like that, and somewhat the civil rights. So anyway, let's get into it, and let me go grab some things here. Give me 1 second. I think we're gonna share here, and then I would have to go, and so we're gonna go here first, and we're gonna start off with the spiritual, as I talked about earlier, about having your spiritual identity and understanding who and what we are of God. I'm going to get the rest of this. I come back down to 8 and 10. But if you read through here at 1 Timothy 1, we're going to have, I'm going to read quickly through 1 through 10, but 7 through 10 is where my point is coming from. Is that when you're in your human rights and you're in your God-given consciousness, and you're handling yourself in your righteousness, and you're being honorable in all your dealings, and you're handling yourself proper, there is no need for the law. There is no need for governing. You are self-governing, because you're governing by the laws of heaven. You're self-governing yourself through this natural, universal, God-given law, right? So abundant that comes these rights. So you have your human rights that's given up under that God-given law, and you're operating from that position, and there's no need for you to have to worry about anything else. The law was made for the lawless. Okay, so let's go through this real quick. Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the commandments of God our Savior, and our Lord Jesus Christ, who is our hope, unto Timothy, my own son in the faith, grace, mercy, and peace from God our Father and Jesus Christ our Lord. As I besought thee when I went to Macedonia, to abide still in Ephesus, and thou mightest change some that they teach no other doctrine. Charge, my bad. That thou mightest charge some that they teach no other doctrine. Neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which promote questions rather than godly edifying in the faith, so do. So saying don't be going with all this other stuff and chasing down all these other things that's not going to edify or just not going to really um, do anything that's going to help and benefit you and the guidance that you're in. So chasing down statuses and chasing down all these other things, they would call it here as genealogies, or trying to track down genealogies to prove Christ in this sense here, and going back into more things that, well, okay, to understand what I'm saying now is that there's a lot of stuff you have to understand about the creation of the New Testament and some of the writings and some of the teachings of people getting the stuff and the writings and the teaching they have is like 40 to 30 years after Christ had actually lived. Anything that they got was passed down information, not nothing written during the lifetime or prior to the lifetime of Christ that they was using, but the books and the Gospels were all written fragments of pieces of stuff starting like 40 to 60 to 100 years after Christ's death. So no one actually lived and knowed and went through any of the stories that's being narrated through the New Testament or actual eyewitnesses of firsthand eyewitnesses of anything. But now, that helped me out. It might not help you out as much, but I needed to get that unwinding out of my mind to get us to the point I'm saying. So you can get caught up with a lot of stuff and still be trapped into the same thing. You get caught up in chasing statuses and don't understand the dynamics or the principles of status and why you will want to get rid of a presumption of a status or to stay in your sovereign capacity and not have to deal with statuses as far as citizens, black, African American, American Indian, Samoan, German, British, non-national citizen, national, state citizen, and all these other stuff. When you're in your human right, you're working in your God-given power, then you know that your spiritual sovereignty is what you are and who you are. All right, so you don't have to get into all that endless stuff unless you're going to do something that's going to correct that or kill the presumption. If you're going to be able to actually bring your lineage and your bloodline that establishes something that's going to edify you to say, you know what, I am not a U.S. citizen. I am not a state citizen. I am this. I am the son of the Most High God, made in the likeness and image. I am this. I am, and when we get down into some other reading, you can see Indian, not tax. You can be indigenous, not Native American. Well, that's another status, but being that Indian, not tax, and those individuals are those that are still in their human rights. They're still in their human-like nature. They were being seen from the outside and still seen at the outside as one that was in a godlike state that could not exist where they wanted to build it. So they've been pushed out, but they're being seen as human, as the original people before colonizer got to America, that these people were worshiping and seeing things in a whole different way and seeing it from a human standpoint. So anyway, when we get down to it, and I go to showing you other things, I'll show you why I feel like all these other things were done to really bring in and to annul the spiritual human rights to bring in this fictitious civil citizen in order to have civil rights. And later on, we'll show you how to be able to delineate between the two and how you can, and we'll talk more about how you can get in contact with us and delineate the difference and walk in your correct status, and you can have all that in your godlike sense, put down and put out and done in the right places. But anyway, so Paul was saying don't worry about all of that other stuff. Let you go edify and do all these other things. Let's just promote question, because most time which promotes questions rather than godly edifying in the faith. So most time it brings up all this other stuff, and you're in there going down rabbit holes about things that you're not no closer to the damn truth that you sought for when you entered into it. Why did I enter into status correction? Why am I doing these passports process? Yes, I understand that I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm not the person I've been checking off on this paperwork. I'm not this federally 14th Amendment citizen, yada, yada, yada. But it reaches down a rabbit hole to where you end up at a place and you're further away from the truth. But If you're gonna do it to edify. So if you're gonna strive for mastery, you must strive lawfully. You must strive righteously. You must be up under the right thing and stick to it. But anyway, need to give heed to fables and endless genealogies. Okay, at 5, now the aim of the commandment is charity out of a pure heart, with a good conscience, and with faith unfeigned. So now the aim of the commandment is charity. So whatever you're going for and the change and everything else, when you're understanding about the laws and the commandments and this thing we'll talk about later, these God natural laws that are embedded in people. It's in, you know what I mean? I'm not going to speak for all people, but it's embedded in people not to harm someone unless they harmed you. It's embedded in people, natural DNA, how to love and to be loved. You don't have to tell a baby how to love and to be loved. There's certain things that's already inside of us that we don't have to deal with. It's on autopilot. So that law, that natural law of your God and who you are when you come upon the earth, and you're able to uh, uh, multiply and subdue and take dominion over you, your life, your atmosphere as far as the earth goes, not the world, but the earth. And you're able to do those things and recognize these things. You do it out of a pure heart. Charity starts at home, something I said earlier. So you do it from a pure heart with a good conscience, and from your spiritual eye, and understanding things from your spiritual consciousness through your human through your human rights. And through your human rights, you have the right to see things as God and to rule it upon the earth as God. Anyway, from which, at 6 it says, from which some have swerved and have turned us aside into vain jaggling. They have went off into the rabbit holes, and they've went off to teaching and promoting things that they found out wasn't real, or they paid for some shit, or that they learned on the internet and they got into it and found out that it wasn't, might not being what it was. It's one scenario, and a lot of times people buy things and get so gun ho on what they bought and believe that it works. They start trying to resell the process or regurgitate it. It's the same way when you get a so-called good word. When we was in church, you want to spread that good word you got with everybody you done met that week about the way the preacher done preached about and how that word was impressed on your life. And now you can apply this word in your life, and you can see so much, and there was so much lifted off you, you were ready to regurgitate it. And hadn't had a chance to understand that whatever that was just the beginning, that was the seed planting. Now you got to live out to get back to that feeling. You're going to have to go through something to have that testimony. But anyway, we'll do that, and people will do that, and then once they get into it, they'll find out they in some old BS. But some people don't care; they'll still continue to teach and to preach BS. The same thing that happens in religion and certain denominations with the dogma and their tradition and their religion. They will regurgitate a teaching and keep feeding it to you. As we talked about earlier in the video, you get that from mainstream society, mainstream um, teaching, education, and everything else that's out there in the mainstream. You're gonna get this regurgitated, and a lot of times it's lies, and they're only truth because someone accepted it as the truth. But there's no more truth than it ever will be, and the real truth is out there. But anyway, now down to the part that I wanted to bring out about the law and why it was made for the lawless. It wasn't made for those that were standing in spiritual righteousness. It was made for those that was lawbreakers or lawless. They wasn't walking in the order, or they wasn't mastered. They haven't self-mastered themselves enough to walk and retain themselves in that righteous state that they become into, or understand that they are. It says at 7, desiring to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say nor whereof they affirm. But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and the disobedient, for the ungodly, for the sinners, and all the way through 10, you hear about the different places or the different things. And I'm not pushing the stigma that religion pushes with all of these different titles for as sinners, unholy, profane, murderers of fathers, murderers of mothers, for manslayers, whoremongers. All of these things are all actions that we've all done from missing the mark of being and right understanding. And these are some things that people and that we've all went through in some shape, form, or fashion. But it's those, what they're speaking about here, those that remain to stay there. But for those that see it and understand, like, no, 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 I got to do better. I got this is against my human nature. This is against my spiritual law. This is against my spiritual. Something got to change, because what I'm doing physically now, I've accepted mentally now, is against my spiritual nature. I have a war inside of me. And Romans and Paul talks about that. I have a war inside of me. I have a war inside of my members. I have a law that I see that I want to do right and the right thing to do. But there's another law that's warned against it. It's the law that I don't want to damn do. And all the things that I don't want to do, that's what the hell I end up doing. And that I want to do in the righteousness, I cannot do. And I think it's in Romans 8. You can check that out too, but we're not doing it tonight. But they're saying that law is the same thing that they're saying here now. A lot of people out here are teachers of the law. They're teachers of this process. They're teachers of this, and they're teachers in this, and teachers of the Constitution. There's a lot of methods and things out here that's gotten a lot of people in jail and got them in trouble. They've been put off on sovereign citizen movement off of misinformation and misconstrued and miswarped and misinterpreted information. But it's all lack on the individual, not the teacher. It's on the student to learn. It's on the student to get it and don't regurgitate it before you understand what the hell. Or don't tell somebody to eat something that you don't know how it's going to make you feel because you just ate it. That makes sense. Okay? I'm on my homemade wine too. I love it. But a lot of people do that, and then they're saying also what they say or whereof they affirm. They're not understanding what they affirm. They'll run to the Constitution, they'll run to this, and they'll run to that. And it does sound good, and emotionally and psychologically, when you're really still stuck in between getting a societal education and getting a public education versus you digging deeper into what they're telling you to find out more and more about really what's going on or what they're teaching you, then you'll see things different. You'll understand some truths, and you'll understand a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on this channel, or you might have came across or heard about, or even dealing with now, about the status correction, understanding the jurisdictions, understanding, a lot of the stuff of how we move and how we operate, and to be still in the private, or to control everything and own nothing, all things of that nature. So a lot of people are doing it. They'll have their good stuff and tell you why you need to be a state citizen and do your passport this way to get your state citizen. No, you want to be a state national. There's more benefits and privilege of this. You need to be state national, or you need to be we the people, or you need to be the real living man upon the land. You need to be the free, you need to be the living soul and not the corporate soul. You're not the straw man, but you are a living entity. And then they have all these other things, but none of that stuff really affirms what they're saying. What really affirms a lot of stuff is case law, common law, the things, the way the court's gonna handle things. So in dealing with court cases and understanding case law, you have to understand the decisions and how to read the decisions and see if this decision has been overturned or did it go to another court and get rejected. Is this case even any good in this decision while you're using this case law? But anyway, that's what you have in these movements. So this is what you need to understand about your own giving sovereignty. So whenever you go out here, no matter if you were like I was, you end up getting tossed and fro by the wind. But I've been thankful I was just screwed enough to understand some things where I could jump off ship before. It was like, nah, that's bullshit. But anyway, was out there finding all of these other teachings outside of what Paul was saying. They were teaching other doctrines besides this one doctrine. I done fell for the fables and the endless genealogies. I done ran down those damn rabbit holes to find myself circling around, coming back out. But anyway, so with you and yourself, you must understand these things for you. That everything I'm talking about now, like well, for me, they're for you. And I speak in a general form, but it's for the individual. If you're going to be desired to be teacher of the law, understanding neither what you say or what they affirm, but we know that the law is good if a man uses it lawfully. So you've heard me say on this channel before too, that The system isn't broken. You just have to understand how to operate inside the system. The system is operating, whether we contribute to it or we don't contribute to it. There's enough that's going to contribute more so than those that won't contribute. And just you being able to be God on your own and stand on your own 2 feet, uh, as another Bible scripture to say, put your 1 foot on land and put 1 foot on water and declare all righteousness. And same thing they talk about Christ supposed to be doing in the end. I think that's in Revelation stuff, and declaring the righteousness and all this other stuff. But you're supposed to be here in your human right and be able to declare that and understand your status and how to stand and represent yourself. And you'll understand that inside the system that there's ways and ways of doing it. And which each and every way about doing it comes with certain components of how you have to operate and what you can and cannot do. When I first got into it, it was about to understand it more so of how I can delineate, if not diminish, my tax liability, and no matter what I've done out here, and how to operate myself in those manners, and how can I control everything and not own anything, because I understood that with ownership came liability, and with liability came the responsibility. So anyway, if a man uses the law, it can help him change and become something totally different. It can make him aware of certain things. But it depends on how you let the law use you. Also entails on how and what you will become and how you will turn out to be. But you can stay in good standings with the law and become a good, profitable model citizen and do everything that they say and live a good, profitable life in that nature. In a sense, that that's your desire. Your system is made for that. You can also live separate from it and live amongst it, just like the Jewish or some of the Amish and everyone else, with being separate and still being intertwined with it, with keeping your God-given humane sovereignty. And that's most I'm gonna put into that out there about that sovereignty, in a sense of how to get yourself and correct yourself and how to stand and represent yourself. But number 9 said, knowing this, that the law is not made for the righteous man. He don't need a law. All things are done righteous, and he's honorable in all his dealing, or she's honorable in all their dealings. So there is no judgment for the righteous. The judgment is for the wicked, for those that don't damn do right. And you don't need the law outside of you written down in order for you to understand law. Like I said, we have a universal inner law inside of us already. And from there do we operate. And if we operate from there, we will never violate any other outward laws. We'll stay in our human rights. And we'll never violate any civil rights. Does that make sense? In our old religious way, they used to say God was a gentleman. God was very civil. God as an honorable person, a very civil person, and then you don't have to worry about those things or attaching yourself to those things. So anyway, and then for all these other misplacements, all these things right here, I say from the lawless and disobedient and all these ungodly and sinners, all this other stuff. That's what that law is made for, is to keep and guide an ordinance, and really, and here's a hard reality check if you have to understand it. It's to protect God people from this other stuff. So people that are in righteous state and doing everything to keep this individual or to keep a murderer away from you, to keep someone that's going to hurt, harm you, or do something, or steal, or do whatever to you, is to keep them in check. So hopefully they can turn around and be profitable gods and put them back in their rightful place as gods. So that way, to him that sinned will sin no more. Him that stole will steal no more. Him that whored will whore no more. Him that lied will lie no more. Or she that gossip, or he that gossip will gossip no more. You know, he that murder will murder no more. You can have that thing. That's what the law is there for. That is the mercy of God. For those that are acting out of their human rights, then you have laws that's going to help either bring them back into the fold or either have them dispersed away from the fold. So it's a good thing. The system works. You just got to know how to work within the system in order to benefit yourself. And so in a sense, as I was saying earlier, you can be able to render towards Caesar's, and that's what God, Caesar will render unto God. All right. So that the law is made civil law. All the stuff was made for the lawless. And okay, and it wasn't made for the righteous. If you're in your human rights, you're in your righteous right. And so when I told you about it being mimicked, we talked about this too, and I used it on another video when we talked about the Declaration of Independence. Okay, this is like one of the first pieces of framework that goes into every other uh, paperwork we have for the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all these other things. This right here is basically like the start of that. And so they're telling you what's going on, why it's going on, and they're delineating here if you're screwed enough to see what's really going on. It was more so about human rights, and then we'll show you later on when it became civil rights, when it became into a more man-made political standpoint. But still, I show you where the scapegoat is. God said He never tempt you beyond your measure, and He will always allow a scapegoat for you. You can Google that, and it'll pull you up to the right stuff as well. If I misquoted any of it or mispronounced anything, you'll find it. But so this is Declaration of Independence. Everybody should be familiar with it. If you're not, go read it. Outside of the excerpts or the little pieces that they teach you in school, go back down here and read all these accusations and all the things that was made about the king and all the things that he had done, the reasoning for them being treated humane and why their human rights and their God-given rights were being violated by something that they was a part of or created in a sense. Okay, so this is unanimous declaration. Unanimous, meaning everybody feels the same way. Declaration of the 13th United States of America, the 13 colonies. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and of nature's gods entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to be separated. So let's break this down real quick. It says, when in the course of human events. So this is all dealing with human rights. The rights we talked about earlier as God-given rights. When the creation of mankind, or however it was done, we was giving a God-given right as humans to live and do a certain thing. And with that, we worked in our rights and formed these other things called governments or equal, or I'll show you here in a second. When it is the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands, which is something different, but it should have been established in the likeness of your spiritual self. So their political bands to them were built in their human right perspectives, their God-given unalienable rights. And so whenever the bands of the government and everything was created, it was created in that likeness and image. But it seemed that it turned out to be something else. But anyway, we're connecting with them with one another to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, saying that when you're in a place and you've created this thing and you've built this thing to help you, called a government or your political bands, and this other thing that you help govern you to be more fruitful and multiply, and to still have your dominion and subduing of the earth, and you're growing and multiplying in that this system should be separate and equal. It should be a separate and equal station, which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them. That natural law, that human law, it should not be no different into these separate stations. And their operations or whatever, they should be the same. And that is the laws of nature, of God's natural laws. We don't refute that. We can't get away from that. These are the unchangeable things. The natural laws are the unchangeable laws or irrefutable laws made by the infinite, not by the finite. The finite created these separate but equal stations to which the laws of nature and natures of God entitled them should happen. Additional respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to be separate. So once your thing that you've created within yourself and your spiritual God-given identity and your human rights as an individual to be God in his or its unique form and fashion that you are created to be, if there's a certain thing that you're doing politically, you should be able to separate you from. If there's something that you're doing that you're involved with out publicly because of something inwardly, you should be able to separate yourself from it and be able to make a clear declaration to why I need to separate from this. Whenever I quit doing cocaine and all those other things, my declaration was clear. It was unanimous that this other alter ego and this other lifestyle that I'm living right now, I got to separate from it because it's against God's nature and the natures of law, God's natural laws and the natures of God laws from what he intended them from. So that's what that means. Of the natures of God entitled them. The way God created these natural laws to operate and to handle themselves, that's what it is. Okay? And so we hold these truths to be self-evident. So these are my reasons. These are my declaration. This is my decree why of the separation. This is their declaration, their decree, and why they should be able to separate themselves from this political status and these other things that are not as equal as their human rights that they intended it to be. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by the Creator with certain, instead of calling it God, a God of your own understanding, what they say in NA and AA, call it the Creator, their Creator. They're saying that these truths to be self-evident that all men, it ain't no need of looking for no evidence, it's self-evident that all men are created equal. We are all created as human. That is the equal factor of all of us. Whether they classify me as a black, or Indian, Native American, whether they classify you a white, Caucasian, a Indian, a Asian, a Japanese, a Korean, a Jamaican, a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, whatever that is, doesn't matter. We all have this equal thing. All the other stuff I just got finished talking about, that is your political stations. Those are those other things, or your political bands that you've created outwardly. You've agreed with these certain groups of individuals, and y'all all think and have a common belief structure. What we call them, church beliefs and conducts. Y'all all are under that same thing. And politicking, when you're all together, that is your band. That is where you're handling and doing things out in the public. So these are your political bands. Anyway, so when you as a person have to understand that we all have this human right, that we are all endowed with by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these, I'm going to repeat that, their Creator with certain unalienable rights. I was made in the likeness and the creation of God. I was made in his likeness and image. That's unalienable. And that right is to be God. To be God is to be sovereign. To be a God is to be sovereign. To be a child of God is to be sovereign. You are the ruler and creator of all things inside of your life. So you have the sovereign power to break any political bans or to get rid of anything that's not going to promote your. We got finished reading over there in 1 Timothy. That's not going to promote the faith or to edify you in your growth and stand in your human rights. And how can you contribute to the world that you are now doing and you have dominion over? How are you being fruitful and multiplying in those areas, financially, whatever it may be? But in these are life, the life that I have, pursuing a life, a better life than I have now, escaping a life that I once had. It doesn't matter, but for these are life, liberty, and the liberty to do all these other things, and the pursuit of happiness. And I'm doing all these things for the pursuit of happiness. Everything I'm doing is I have the liberty to do it for the life and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So this is the next thing we're talking about, the law being created for those that are ungoverned. that don't understand this natural, God-given from our Creator and unalienable rights to stay in our human rights. Whenever we do those things, whenever we build a political band or we build something outside of us that's going to be here for the better and benefit of us, when I create a trust, I create something that is outside of me in my likeness and image, it will be by the natural laws and the natural creation that God intended it to be, and it will profit me for those reasons. Whenever I delineate my status, it will profit me for those reasons. And so anything that's formed outside of that, there's gonna be a governing rule or conditions. We know we talked about before, everything is contracts. There's gonna be a governing rule and condition or a law set in order for all these things to happen. There's the trustee got a law to go by. The beneficiary have a law to go by. The executor have things to go by. The grantor have laws to go by, or whatever, however it may be. If it's a company, the damn CEO got things to go by. The president got things to go by. The managing manager got things to go by. He got laws to go by. All these things are laws are good, and it's all for the profit, as long as we stay in that natural place. Okay. That they are endowed with the creative, okay, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, that we create these things, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, by us being self-governed, by us having sovereign power by God to self-govern ourselves. When we create these things, for us. So this is where it derives its power from. It's got a creation from us. Yeah, I have to hit you back. But anyway, where was I at? Sorry about that. That whenever the form of government becomes it's okay. The right governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying this foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Okay, so that's before I'm gonna go into this. You can read the rest of this, and I was saying before, because I done got late into the night. Go down here and read all the things that they said, the reason why they had to get away from the king and all these other things. But for the last portion of this, I want to tell you that when you're dealing with this and you built this other self-forming of government and it's operating on your own, like I say, when I got on the drugs and it was had its own governance, it was controlling and dictating a lot part about my life. When I saw it destructive for me, I had a right to abolish that thing. Once I seen that I have a right to stand in my God-given status, that I can abolish the citizenship. I can abolish me being called a Black American or African American. I could abolish all of that and live in my life and do a certain thing without bothering or attacking or going after anything. I am not against the government or anything. I'm just a presumption killer. I am a reality teller. I'm a truth seeker. And I'm going to stand on that I know that I am truth. And I don't have to stand on the lies no more. So I have the right to not be up under those things that govern that. That's what the Inner Circle Ministry has an education department about too, and the things we offer at that university, how you can set your life up and abolish those things and handle yourself and set up, what did they say, how did they put this here? Laying its foundation on such principles and organizations. Oh, okay. I'm coming back up here. It is the rights of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, to bring a new one, to start something else, to give you a different outcome, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such a form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So in order to build a generational wealth and a lot of things that I'm going to have that I've already started and accomplished for down to my fourth, fifth, and sixth generations, there are certain things I gotta set up. They gotta be good. I gotta have a new governance. I gotta have a way for it to set up and for it to do it for my happiness. The other one was created for the other happening. So let's get into the civil part. And I have to probably do another. I'll probably do another video, depending on how you like or comment in the comments about it. And I go to YouTube in a little bit and check it out. Matter of fact, I'm gonna check the comment section now, see if anybody said anything. I don't know if this is up to date. You gotta give me a second, and I'll get back to it. I just want to see. I want to see real quick if there was anything in the comments, and it won't let me pull it up. Let me get it from here, and it still may not let me view it from here. And it may do. So I have to view it from here. Okay, so if there's no comments, I'm gonna continue to go back to where I was. And so that part of them building and initiating their separation from that government that they was in, establishing their new government, they were setting up under human rights, and they were establishing it up under their God-given, our God-given, universally accepted rights as humans. And so later on, I'm going to show you where those political bands have turned almost totally political through the process of the Constitution. And it starts off with the Constitution. For me, this right here is the pickup from where the intentions of what they told about the Declaration of Independence, why they were separating the new form of government, and how they were going forward. This is now collected to the we the people now in the new form of government that they have come to agreement on. These are the laws they're setting up for it. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. This is why they left. They left to form a more perfect union. Establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterities. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Preamble to the United States Constitution. Forget about all of that. Remember that goes into the back of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so where were I for to go with this? So that tells you about the Constitution. When you get in the Constitution, they're going to give you the governments, the setup for them from Article 1 all the way through. It's going to start with telling you how they're going to build the bodies that are going to be governing. So they're going to start telling you that the powers of that shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House and a Representative. This is building up, and they're going to continue to build up until they come up with the Congress and everything else. How it runs, how it operates, and then they're going to get into the restraints on the protection of the protected rights that are given. That comes with the civil rights, which cannot completely abolish human rights, but in this political sense, 9 times out of 10, the civil rights are the way it's going to be tried, heard, and from that perspective, and it's not going to be treated from any humane perspective unless you can tie it into the civil rights protected. It's going to leave the human rights protection. Okay. Anyway, and it goes in there to tell you more and more about some of the things they can do, what they can't do. I mean, how they're going to build it. I mean, how they're going to build the Congress through the Senate, House, and how each one of these representatives and people can and cannot do. And then, like in Section 8, it's a good place to read too. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, exercises, to pay the debts, and to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imports, and exercises shall be uniform throughout the United States, and all this shit can be all same uniform throughout each state, federally and statewide. Anyway, and you go in here and see all the other powers that they have to do. The power to borrow money on the credit of the United States, to regulate commerce in foreign nations, and among the several states and with the Indian tribe. They're able to do business with all them in what we call the world of commerce. They're able to negotiate treaties, enter contracts, sue, counter sue, be sued, all this other stuff. They can make war, make peace with all foreign nations and among several states and with Indian tribes. Remember that too, the Indian tribes. Something that's different from everything else that's involved with your civil rights. and to establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States, to coin money, to do all this other stuff, to build a post office. So you're gonna see all these other things that they have a flat out right to do. So when you understand that this is what a uh, federal jurisdiction take places into your state's jurisdictions too, outside of the state ceding over certain things into their jurisdiction, it's through all of these things here is where you're going to get your minimum contact at with them. But anyway, uh, exclusive power of the president, Article 3, the juice power of the United States shall be vested in the Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may. This is another thing, another one to read whenever you do read the Constitution. I'm just showing some more other things they're setting up how you got to be dealt with in the civic. Once you get into public, you're going to be dealt with things, and everything going to be dealt with through the courts. Everything is making it through the courts, through contracts, and they're all done through some type of agreement. And all of the affairs and all of the settlements are going to be done through the courts. Reading for the case law and understanding case law in court, reading court decisions and understanding what was going on, how to. You have rights, you have protected rights, but you don't have them unless you know how to enforce them. So you need to learn all these other things and learn these things here and understand these laws so you can affirm it in these laws. Even the things I'm talking about, you can be able to see it and affirm it within yourself and understand even on a greater level than I do. So as you can enforce your laws and you can understand how that system works so you can stay in honor inside of that system. Okay. Talk about the full faith and credit and all that other stuff. I think I wrote past all of this, but you can check out all these other things too as well. So that is most all of the Constitution, and then you're going to get into the Bill of Rights. And so you go past all this stuff here. I'm gonna pull up the transcript, and this is what it was before. And we're not gonna get to the for. We're gonna get into the now. So when you understand what civil rights, the civil rights were granted through the 13th and the 14th Amendments to the Constitution, where they added to, like we talked about last week, the amendments to the complaint. There was things that was added to, and the number of complaints is in order to the changes made to the original complaint. If it's 1, if it's 34, this is the 34th Amendment made into the original complaint, starting from number 1. And so the amendments work the same way. After the Constitution was made, they had different ratifications of the Constitution. And all of that come about when you're going to find out where did this civil rights come in at, and the difference in between the civil rights and your God-given rights. Okay, so the U.S. Bill of Rights, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That is where your human rights lie at. Not to get into too much details of how and what to get things together, but if you're going to go and you're going to declare status, you need to have your status corrected. And you have to understand that this is where you're going to do it from your human right, God-given status. Not from a citizen solely. And I'll show you another place that you tie together with it, and they're going to work hand in hand. Okay, so if you're going to use what they're going to call, what we called earlier, a political ban or something outside of yourself to help you govern and to assist you in your pursuit for happiness, I'll show you what it said as well. But it's right here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Your religion is your spirituality and the way that you conduct yourself in that religious manner in order whatever it is for you to stay consistent with your spirituality. They can't make no law respecting that, an establishment of that. Are you creating it from your standpoint? Whether if you say that you are a non-Baptist, social, Pentecostal, or whatever, if you're Catholic, without it, you create your own. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or whatever you want to do, however you want to do your exercise of that creation, that establishment of that religion and living it out. They can't create a law to do that. or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or your freedom of speech about your religion and everything else. They can't do anything to abridge the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. And this is what the Declaration of Independence started from. All of these petitions for a government for a redress of grievance, and they didn't get one, so they separated themselves. So anyway, Amendment 2. A well-regulated military being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated military being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. So when I read this, I'm reading it backwards. For me, the right for the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. Why? It will create a well-regulated military being necessary to the security of a free state. And you are a free state, a free nation. You are a free kingdom in yourself. But anyway, we're not going to go to 4 or 5. The right of the people to be secure in their person, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person of things to be seized. No person, 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. This is when you got the Fifth Amendment. You got the right to shut the fuck up. Anything you say can and will be used against you if you don't shut the fuck up. That's the first thing to try. First thing to do. Don't consent. I'm not saying be belligerent, but don't consent to any search, any seizure, any breathalyzer, any other stuff. You don't have to consent to it. Anyway, the suits of common law, there will be the environmental controversy. Okay, it's out bail. And so those things right here are the mirror image I was talking about earlier. This is where you understand if you actually standing in your God-given right and you're in your God-given status and you're representing yourself in your God-given status, that all these other things will protect you as well. These are the protection that they can't do and should not do against you. But if you're in different places, even as a citizen, and doing all these other things, you have what they call, these are basically some of the fundamentals of the civil rights. And let's go down to the rest of them here. So when it actually became civil, and what I was showing you earlier is the transformation of everything still being in the human rights, and all those are protected by the human rights. When you get down to these amendments here, 13, this is when it changed into a different political status, and people was treated in a greater sense of just citizenship. It transpired into what we know now as classifications, or same thing as statuses. Amendment 13, Section 1, neither slave nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So this is the freedom of the slaves. This is when they freed all the slaves and saying nobody has a right to do that. Now everybody is, in a sense, we're working on our humanity. We're going to fix this humane problem we have, but we're going to attack it civilly. We have a humane problem with these people. So whenever you hear about the civil rights and the things and those protections, you'll never hear it actually saying anything to be done for those they say it was protected for and the humane things happening to them, which would be the black or the free slaves, aka or the Indian not taxed, or the Indian tribes. These people here is who suffered the monstrosity and the reason for the civil rights instead of human rights. We're not going to treat them as equal humans as our Creator has endowed us all to be equal. At least give them civil rights and be civil to them. All right. And so when it comes to 14, all persons born or naturalized, and we read in the Constitution that the Congress have the right to naturalization and make all the laws pertaining to that. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state, and you hear this right here too, so they're going to try to tell you that there's the federal citizenship rules state citizenship through some other things, and we'll talk about that. And I spoke on a little bit last week, but for tonight, I just did want to put that out there. So this is where some of this comes from. But you're going to see that you do have simultaneously state citizenship, because you can't have federal citizenship without state citizenship. So they try to say that they're simultaneously, but no, there's one person, there's one second. I don't care if the first one won by nose hair. State went by the nose hair, then the other one. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. No state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privilege or immunity of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or the property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So when you hear about this word jurisdiction, those that are inside of this jurisdiction will have to be citizens. You cannot be in your human God-given right in order to have these protective things that come with the Constitution and these amendments. You'll read later on when you're reading the Constitution, you'll see that these things were made for the citizen. And if you are not considered a citizen, beforehand, if you was a white man and a white woman, you were considered a citizen, but the white woman had no right to vote. Later on, they made the black man and the Indian and the black woman all citizens, but the woman still didn't have a right to vote, and the man only had a proportion, 3/4 of something or 3/5 or something like that of a black man was counted as a vote. But anyway, you will have that jurisdiction is for the citizen in the federal government and the Constitution that gives them the right in the Congress to rule and make laws for that. So you have certain protected rights as citizens, I said earlier, that you will know how and what to do to enforce those rights. But that's where the jurisdiction come in, and you get those equal protections of laws up under there. But you can be absent of those laws, not saying that you are immune to those laws in a sense, but where the law is no good to the righteous. It's only for the lawless. So in your righteous status and all this other stuff, you don't have to worry about those things. But you can have the right to deny any person in this jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And representatives shall have the appointment among the several states according to their representative numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding, not counting, Indian not tax. So with your God-given spirituality and your human rights, to understand that you are God and that you are made in the likeness and image of God, or you are the son and daughter of God, and so that means that you are a God, and that from that place you have a right to state your status in your religious status and represent yourself in your religious or spiritual status before and with them. And alongside with that, your Indian not tax, your other part, your other indigenous, for me, my indigenous part of me being a part of the 13, being a part of this land before the 13 colonies got here. So the exclusion of the Indian not tax, I'm not even in that jurisdiction. I have a different governing, I have a different God, I have a different government to govern me. My political bands have been broken, and I have a new form of government that's going to be for my betterment. Okay? So those are a couple of things that, like I say, we talk about and we teach here, and we show you how to properly get yourself set up in that same way. Okay, but excluded any is not taxed, but when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors or president or vice president of the United States and the Congress exclusively, they go into the ages and all this other stuff. Then it goes into the debt and all this other stuff. And all right, then down here at Article 15, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state of account of race, color, or previous condition of situation. So The reason I feel like behind for all the stuff that deals with civil rights came with the right to give all these other people a right to vote inside of their system. With there was a new form of government in order to establish and to build it that needed more participants, and so was the 14th Amendment citizen created, which made everyone citizens subject to this federal jurisdiction of the United States government. And so, where else was I wanting to look at? So we looked at the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration, uh, and that may be it for that on this part about uh, when it comes to the Civil Rights Act. You'll have to read it of 1868. Uh, yeah, and so when you read in that, you read more about what the civil rights are, and the civil rights basically. Like I said, they're protected by the Bill of Rights, and you'll read more about it into the Bill of Rights. And we went through all this other stuff, different articles, and we just got finished reading all this other stuff. You're gonna see some of your protected stuff that you will have, or you will recognize how to be separate from them, how to organize your life and to set your life up and delineate yourself and stay in your human rights. And you don't have to worry about violated, protected civil rights that those can infringe upon in the public. You can stay in your private capacity as God and be ye separate from amongst them. You can be in the world but not be of the world. And you have a God-given right and an unalienable right to do that. So, um, join us next Wednesday when we do another What's Up Wednesday show. As I said, I won't be announcing that this is what it is, but every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is when we do that. Keep your eyes open for other pop-ups, shorts, and other things like that. Understanding that and what we talked tonight is help you understand your sovereignty. And your sovereignty is God-given right. So as you've been a sovereign citizen, you are a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, where you are ascertained your sovereignty. And as an individual, it is displayed collectively once we are out amongst into this world. So this is where we got our sovereignty from. This is how we're able to build a form of government to help us, as they talked about it in the Declaration of Independence. This is how and why people build these governing parties to help protect and govern this stuff and bring us to this place. But hit us up. Check out my comment section. Leave me a comment, like, share. Let me know where you're from, your thoughts and opinions. Read the description section and see all the things we have to offer there for you. If you want more information about this, you can subscribe. And we have other way to get membership where we can do more things in the private and talk more things and do more things in the private that I can't do in the private. So you can actually get access to other information that everybody else won't get unless you're a part of the inner circle. But thank you guys for coming out tonight. Thank you for investing in yourself. Thank you for give me 1 second. Yeah. Thank you for investing in yourself. Thank you for being the best part of your life. Thank you for being a part of In the Circle Ministries. Thank you for all your likes. Thank you for your shares and your comments in advance. Continue to go out to be great. Continue to work on your self-mastery. And see you next week. Love you guys and good night.